Chosen one. Listen, everything around you seems still, but heaven is moving. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle stirring deep in your chest is not random emotion. It is a signal, a divine pulse. The hour that was written over your life before your first breath is now unfolding. You have waited, endured, questioned, and sometimes even doubted. But this is the moment your spirit begins to remember who you are. You are not waking up by accident. For years, you have walked through a fog that made you feel unseen, misplaced, but God hid you for a reason. You were being preserved, not punished. While others hurried ahead, chasing spotlight and noise, heaven was teaching you to move in silence. Your stillness was training. Your tears were seeds. What looked like delay was divine design. Picture a harp left untouched in a quiet room. Dust settles on its strings, and the world forgets its sound. But the moment a master musician enters, everything changes. One touch, and forgotten strings come alive again. That is you. Right now, the master's hand is about to play the song that has been waiting in you for years. There was once a woman named Mara. She spent a long season believing her life had no melody left. She prayed and nothing happened. She worked and saw no fruit. But one evening, while sitting under an open sky, she whispered, "If you still have a plan for me, show me." The next morning, she received a call that altered everything: a chance to serve, to teach, to heal. What began as obedience turned into destiny. Her waiting wasn't wasted, it was preparation. And just like Mara, your silence has been sacred soil. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 33, verse 3. "Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know." This promise was not written for ancient prophets alone. It echoes for you right now. The same voice that thundered in Jeremiah's time whispers to your soul, "Call to me." You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to respond. Destiny does not begin with clarity. It begins with surrender. Look around you. The signs are everywhere. The tension you've been feeling is not chaos. It's contraction. The universe is groaning to bring forth what's been hidden inside you. Heaven's timeline has reached your name. The doubts that once shouted are losing their power. You've survived what others thought would break you. You've outlasted storms that would have destroyed lesser spirits. And now, as dawn begins to rise over your life, heaven whispers, "Your time has come." Every unanswered prayer is finding its response. Every locked door is hearing the sound of keys. What once looked like wilderness is becoming the place of revelation. You are about to see that all of it, every delay, every disappointment, was part of the architecture of your becoming. Take this in slowly. Feel it like sunlight on your face after a long night. You don't have to force the next chapter. You only need to open the door. Heaven is already writing your reintroduction. Chosen one. If this word resonates in your spirit, if you sense that unmistakable pull that says, "This is for me," then lift your agreement in faith. Like, share, and comment 888 below. Let that number be your declaration that you choose awakening over fear, purpose over delay, and calling over confusion, not because you need validation, but because you are marking this moment in heaven's timeline. Your awakening isn't coming someday, it's happening now. Step into it. The sound of new beginnings is already in the air. You may not see the full picture yet. But faith rarely begins with sight. It begins with a whisper, with a yes that rises from deep within when everything around you says, "Not yet." That small yes can change everything. It's the sound that shakes the gates of delay and announces that you will no longer live in waiting, you will live in becoming. The world has tried to name you by your pain, but heaven has already named you by your purpose. Every scar is now a signature of survival. Every tear, a seed of glory. You are not the same as you were yesterday. You have crossed an invisible line, and the atmosphere knows it. Some will not understand the glow that begins to follow you. Don't explain it, just walk in it. You are stepping into a rhythm written before time, and every step will begin to make sense soon. Remember this, the same God who called you will sustain you. Don't rush. Don't fear. Just move when He moves, and watch everything align. Your story is not over, it's just beginning. You were never ordinary. Every thread in the fabric of your life was woven with divine precision. Others may have seen randomness, chows, or coincidence, but heaven never lost the pattern. Even the pain had purpose. The rejection, the nights you spent questioning your worth, all of it was forging something rare inside you. There is nothing common about a soul refined in silence. Since childhood, you may have sensed that you didn't quite fit. You saw things others ignored, felt deeply where others stayed numb. That sensitivity was not weakness, it was calibration. You were tuned to the frequency of heaven long before you had words to describe it. The ache of being misunderstood was simply the sound of destiny knocking against the walls of limitation. There was a young man once. His name was Ezra. While his friends pursued success, he felt drawn to solitude. He didn't know why he couldn't join the noise, why crowds left him empty. He spent nights staring at the ceiling, asking why his heart burned for something he couldn't name. It wasn't until years later, after losing everything he thought defined him, that he discovered the reason. In that emptiness, he heard a voice say, "I've been waiting for you to stop chasing and start listening." That moment broke him open and rebuilt him from within. Your story may not look like Ezra's, but you know the feeling, the inner dissonance, the sense that there must be more. That's because the ordinary world can never satisfy a spirit that was called for extraordinary purpose. You've been marked by eternity, and eternity doesn't shrink to fit temporary things. Think of the caterpillar before it becomes a butterfly. Inside the cocoon, everything that once defined it dissolves. If someone looked inside, it would appear as chaos, a formless mess. But within that chaos, transformation is quietly taking shape. You've been in that same space where nothing makes sense, yet everything sacred is being formed. The breakdown was never the end. It was the blueprint for rebirth. You might not have realized it, but heaven's training always happens away from applause. It happens in the quiet, in the mundane, in the seasons where nothing seems to move. Every time you chose kindness instead of anger, patience instead of panic, prayer instead of despair, you were being strengthened. Every no that protected you, every delay that redirected you, was sculpting your inner authority. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness is not inactivity, it is alignment. It's the sacred art of trusting that God's hand can reach further than your striving ever could. And that's where you are now. Heaven doesn't need you to prove your worth. It needs you to remember it. There are moments when you question why you've been through so much. Why did it take so long? Why the losses? The isolation? The silence? But every chosen one carries weight, and weight requires strength. You were not made fragile. You were made unbreakable. That's why storms couldn't drown you. That's why betrayal couldn't destroy you. You are stepping into a revelation season, not one of sudden fame or external reward, but of recognition, finally seeing yourself the way heaven always has. The moment you understand that you were never ordinary, comparison loses its grip. You stop chasing and start carrying. Remember, even when others cannot see your potential, God never forgets his design. You are not late, you are on time. The delay only made you deeper. The pain only made you purer. The silence only sharpened your hearing. Chosen one. Your identity is not found in applause, but in alignment. It's not who sees you, it's who sent you. The world may still underestimate you, but heaven knows exactly what it placed within you. You were never ordinary, and soon, the world will know it too. There will come a day when the memories that once hurt will become testimonies that heal others. You will speak from scars, not from wounds, and your story will unlock strength in those who have lost their way. That is the quiet reward of the chosen, the ability to turn pain into purpose. Do not rush to prove who you are. Your life itself will testify. Every step you take in truth will echo louder than any defense you could ever give. So breathe. Let this chapter unfold without fear. What is meant for you is already making its way toward you. Steady as sunrise, sure as grace. You carry something the world cannot see, but all of heaven recognizes it. The invisible mark of the chosen rests on you, and even when you tried to walk away from purpose, that mark followed. It's why you could never quite disappear, even when you wanted to. You were designed to be seen by the right eyes, at the right time. The world measures identity by visibility, but heaven measures it by weight. The heavier your calling, the deeper the carving had to be. That mark was not placed upon you to make life easier. It was given to make you eternal. Every attack you've endured was a reaction to that unseen signature. Darkness never wastes energy fighting what poses no threat. A man named Caleb once lived with that same unseen weight. He worked quietly while others rose quickly. He didn't chase titles. He chased obedience. People mocked him for staying faithful to small things. What they didn't know was that God had already written Caleb's name in future victories. Years later, when the land was finally ready, it was Caleb who stood unshaken, because his faith had been built in the unseen years. Like Caleb, you carry quiet authority, the kind that cannot be stolen because it was never given by men. There's a mystery about divine selection. It often looks unfair to human eyes. Why you? Why not someone else? But heaven doesn't choose based on skill. It chooses based on surrender. The ones who can be trusted with silence can be trusted with power. That's why you were marked long before anyone noticed your potential. God saw what others overlooked, the endurance hidden in your heart, the compassion born from your pain. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 27, verse 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? That light is not only around you, it's within you. It's the glow that no circumstance can dim. the radiance that hell itself cannot eclipse. The mark of the chosen is not a crown you wear, it's the light that flows from endurance, from staying faithful when no one was watching. Imagine a lantern in a storm. The wind howls, the rain pounds, and yet the flame refuses to die. That's you. The oil of your faith keeps the light alive. The storms didn't destroy your identity, they revealed it. Every battle you've survived has added brightness to your flame. You may not realize it yet, but you've already stepped into a level of strength. Others only talk about. That strength was earned in the waiting, in the prayers that felt unanswered, in the moments you almost gave up but didn't. You are not defined by how the world sees you. You are defined by what heaven stamped within you. This is why certain doors never opened for you. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God never denies his chosen. He protects them from what would dilute their anointing. You were never meant to fit into every room. Some doors remained closed, so your purpose could remain pure. And now, you are beginning to understand that your hidden seasons were not wasted. You have been carrying an invisible authority, and soon, it will become visible to everyone who once doubted you. Now, pause for a breath. Feel that truth rise within you, the knowing that you are marked, protected, and prepared. Comment, heaven knows me. Oh, let those words be your quiet roar. Because it's true, heaven has always known you. Even when the world misread you, you carry the unseen light that changes atmospheres. And the time is drawing near for that light to be revealed. There will come a day when your light no longer needs introduction. The very atmosphere around you will testify. People will feel peace when you walk in, because your presence will carry evidence of divine appointment, not human validation. Every hidden season has built a quiet gravity in your spirit. That weight draws divine opportunities toward you, without striving, without begging. What once ignored you will soon recognize the authority you now embody through endurance. Heaven's timing is perfect. Even when it feels painfully slow, what looks delayed is often divine protection, repositioning you for impact. You are being placed where your light can no longer be dimmed or mistaken for ordinary. So when the moment comes, and it will stand tall, do not shrink for comfort or apology. You have paid the price in silence. Now, wear your mark with grace, knowing heaven itself called you for this hour. The real battle was never around you. It has always been within. The mind of the chosen is the fiercest battlefield on earth. Long before any victory shows up in your life, it must first be won in your thoughts. Darkness knows this. That's why it wages war there first. If it can convince you to doubt your worth, it doesn't need to destroy your body. It already has your future. You've felt it before, that inner war between faith and fear, between what God promised and what your eyes see. One voice whispers, "You're not enough," while another whispers, "You're already chosen." That clash is not confusion. It's proof that your spirit and your destiny are in motion. There was once a young woman named Leora. She lived in a small town where dreams went to sleep. She carried visions that didn't fit her surroundings. But the louder her faith grew, the louder her doubts screamed. Every step she took toward her calling seemed to summon resistance. One evening, after yet another failure, she broke down and said, "God, I don't know if I can keep believing." In that stillness, she felt a quiet response within. "Then just keep breathing." Oh, that simple phrase changed everything. She learned that faith isn't always roaring declarations. It's the quiet decision to keep breathing when your world feels like it's collapsing. That's where the battle for the mind is won, in moments no one sees. When you choose to believe again, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 22, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light." End quote. Those words are not about physical sight, they are about focus. Whatever holds your gaze shapes your life. When you fix your thoughts on loss, you magnify loss. When you fix your gaze on purpose, you magnify light. The mind of a chosen one must become a sanctuary, not a battlefield. That means guarding your thoughts like sacred gates. The enemy doesn't fear your prayers as much as he fears your awareness. Once you recognize the war for what it is, his power begins to break. That's why your thoughts matter more than you realize. The voice of condemnation is never divine. God convicts to heal, but darkness condemns to paralyze. Learn to recognize the difference. The human mind is like fertile soil. It will grow whatever you consistently plant. Many chosen ones lose their peace not because they lack faith, but because they keep watering weeds of fear with their attention. But now you're awakening to something deeper. You're learning to choose your thoughts the way a gardener chooses seeds, carefully, intentionally, prayerfully. Imagine your mind as a city at dawn. Every thought is a citizen. Some bring peace, others bring panic. You cannot control which thoughts knock on your gate, but you decide who gets to stay. As you begin to choose peace over panic, clarity over confusion, the noise starts to fade, and in that silence, you begin to hear God clearly again. Leora's story didn't end in defeat. Over time, as she trained her mind to agree with heaven rather than fear, doors began to open that had been sealed for years. Not because her circumstances changed overnight, but because she changed the atmosphere inside her. When your inner world aligns with truth, your outer world must follow. The battle for your mind is not a one-time victory, it's a daily discipline. There will still be days when anxiety knocks, when old fears whisper, but now you know the difference between the voice of truth and the voice of torment. Truth liberates, torment confines, and you were not created for confinement. You are being renewed from the inside out. Each thought you surrender becomes a seed of transformation. Each lie you replace with truth becomes armor that the enemy cannot penetrate. This is the quiet revolution of the chosen, winning unseen wars, so visible victories can last. Remember this: peace is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of perspective. When your mind aligns with heaven's truth, even chaos cannot shake you. You fought long enough to know that resilience doesn't mean you never fall, it means you never stay fallen. The battle for your mind was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal the strength that was hidden there all along. So now, let your thoughts breathe again. Let peace become your natural state, not your rare moment. You have crossed the threshold from survival to clarity, and nothing in hell or earth can take that renewed mind from you. There comes a moment when recognition no longer comes from outside applause, but from within, when you finally begin to see yourself the way heaven has always seen you. That moment is sacred, and it is happening now. You've walked through storms, through misunderstandings, through years where you gave and received little in return. But now, the clouds are breaking. You are beginning to recognize the reflection in the mirror as someone chosen, refined, and deeply loved. You've spent so long surviving that you almost forgot what it means to truly live. You learned how to carry heavy things quietly, how to smile through ache, how to believe when belief felt impossible. But this new chapter isn't about endurance anymore. It's about revelation. It's about realizing that all along, you were never being punished. You were being prepared. There was once a man named Joel. For years he worked hard, but felt invisible. He saw others rise quickly, while his progress seemed painfully slow. But one evening, as he walked home beneath a darkening sky, a thought whispered through his mind. You've been faithful in the shadows. Soon, I'll reveal you in the light. That was the turning point. From that moment, everything began to change. The same places that ignored him began to seek him. What shifted? Not his work, but his recognition of who he was. You're stepping into that same moment. The moment when identity becomes illumination. You no longer have to chase what's meant for you. It will recognize your light when you stand in truth. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 3. Let us acknowledge the Lord. Let us press on to know him. As surely as the sun rises, he will appear. Oh, just as the dawn never asks for permission to rise, your purpose doesn't need approval to shine. All it asks for is your yes, your willingness to believe again. Think of a lighthouse standing on a cliff. Night after night, waves crash, winds roar, storms come and go, but the light keeps shining. It doesn't move to where ships are. It stands where it was built to be. And because it stays, the lost can find their way home. That's who you are now, the steady light that helps others navigate their storms. And just like every lighthouse, your glow is not fueled by pride, but by oil, by something poured out from within. Every word, every act of kindness, every message like this one, it all costs something. It costs time, prayer, and energy. But it is never a burden. It's a shared flame. If this light has ever touched your heart, take a second to tend the flame. You can do that when you like to keep the fire visible. Share, so it reaches someone still lost in their night. And subscribe, so the flow of light finds you again. Then, if you ever feel led, imagine a well in a dry land. Each small drop offered keeps the water rising for others. Your donation is that drop, quiet but powerful, turning scarcity into abundance. No pressure, no price tag, just the natural rhythm of generosity. Joel once said, years after his breakthrough, when I finally started sharing what little I had, it multiplied in ways I could never imagine. That's the divine pattern when you pour out. Heaven pours in. So whether you give your time, your encouragement, or your resource, know this: you are part of something eternal. You're not helping a project, you're fueling purpose. Recognition begins when you see yourself as more than a receiver. You become a vessel, a co-creator with heaven's plan. Every act of generosity, every click, every word, every quiet offering becomes part of a bigger story that stretches beyond this moment. And if all you can give today is your attention, that too is holy. Because attention is the beginning of transformation. Stay present. Stay open. Keep shining. For you are no longer waiting to be recognized. You are learning to recognize yourself through heaven's eyes, and that revelation changes everything. Like rivers meeting the sea, every small act of light you release returns multiplied. Nothing given in love is ever lost. It circles back as peace and strength and divine alignment when you least expect it. Even your quiet listening right now is seed. Heaven counts it. What you nurture in faith always blooms in its season, even if the soil still looks dry today. So lift your gaze. The dawn you've been praying for is already on the horizon. Keep your flame steady. Your life itself has become part of heaven's unfolding story. There are moments when time itself seems to hold its breath, moments when everything that once felt delayed suddenly begins to make sense. You are stepping into one of those moments now. The gears of heaven are turning again. And what you thought was lost in waiting is being restored. Delays were never denial. They were divine timing disguised as stillness. You prayed for movement, but heaven was aligning direction. You asked for speed, but God was protecting sequence. The chosen don't live by human calendars. They move by revelation, by timing written before they were born. There was a woman named Sarai who once felt forgotten by time. She had watched seasons change, watched others rise, watched promises pass her by, or so she thought. But one night, as she sat under a sky full of stars, she felt the whisper, "You will still laugh again." That night marked a shift that would one day make her name eternal. She learned that heaven's "not yet" never means never. You, too, have been in that place, half faith, half fatigue. But even when you were silent, God was not. The pause was protection. The delay was design. Every closed door was a calendar mark in heaven's book, waiting for the right hour. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. These are not just comforting words, they are coordinates. They remind you that while you were standing still, God was already walking ahead, preparing paths, stirring hearts, moving pieces. You were not being punished, you were being positioned. There's a rhythm to divine timing, like the ocean's tide. It pulls back before it surges forward. The retreat isn't loss, it's momentum gathering. Your life has followed that same rhythm. What felt like a setback was actually the inhale before breakthrough. Think of an archer drawing back the bow. To the untrained eye, it looks like retreat, but the further the string is pulled back, the further the arrow will fly. You have been in that pullback season, and the tension you felt was not rejection, it was propulsion. Now, the hand of heaven is about to release. You've noticed the signs, the unexpected peace after long anxiety, the small confirmations that seem to appear everywhere you look. That's no coincidence. The divine clock is striking your hour. Everything that was paused is being rewound into alignment. There will always be people who rush ahead, thinking you've fallen behind. Don't envy them. Some seeds grow fast but shallow. Others take time because their roots run deep. You are the latter. You are being rooted for endurance, not applause. Sarai's laughter came late, but it came full. Your fulfillment may not arrive how you imagined, but it will arrive complete, nothing missing, nothing broken. Every delay will make sense when you stand in the harvest of what once hurt. Now, you stand at the intersection of waiting and unfolding. The next step isn't about striving, it's about readiness. Heaven has not forgotten a single word spoken over your life. Every promise still breathes. Every prophecy still holds weight. Every prayer still echoes. Comment 555 below. Let that number be your sign of divine alignment. 3 5s, grace upon grace upon grace. It's not superstition, it's symbolism. Every 5 reminds you that the hand of God is working in your favor, weaving beauty from delay. Type it as an act of agreement, a small but sacred nod that says, I trust the timing, and because when you do, something shifts. It's not that magic happens, it's that faith finds focus. The moment you align with heaven's pace, peace begins to replace panic. You start seeing what was hidden in plain sight. Remember this, the waiting room of heaven is not a punishment cell, it's a preparation chamber. What's forming in you right now would have been too fragile if given too soon. Timing is not just about when, it's about who you've become by the time it arrives. You are ready now. The tide that once pulled away is about to return stronger than before. The clock that felt still is ticking again. You are standing on the edge of divine motion. So breathe, step forward. Trust the pull of destiny. It knows exactly where it's taking you. Every delay has built a strength in you that rush cannot give. The waiting trained your discernment. Now you know the difference between almost and appointed, between good timing and God's timing. That awareness is your new compass. When doors open now, you'll recognize them instantly, not by chance, but by peace. Every season of isolation has a reason. The wilderness is not a place of punishment. It is a divine classroom where the heart learns what comfort could never teach. You didn't lose connection. You were led into consecration. When heaven chooses to elevate, it first separates. That's why solitude often comes before significance. The chosen always pass through the hidden years. Those years are not wasted. They are weight training for the soul. Every tear you cried in silence watered roots the world will one day see. The reason your strength confuses people is because it wasn't built in public, it was forged in fire. There was once a man named Elia, whose life looked like endless wandering. He had dreams of leading, of building, of helping others. But all his efforts seemed to fall apart. So he withdrew. He thought God was done with him, but heaven was only refining him. He didn't know it then. But the long silence was sharpening his hearing. By the time his name was called again, he no longer sought recognition, he sought revelation. That's when true calling begins. You may have felt that same ache, the loneliness of carrying a vision no one else can see. People mistook your distance for pride, when in truth, you were learning the discipline of silence. In solitude, God doesn't just heal wounds, He redefines identity. The noise fades, and the real you begins to speak. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. Declare, we glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character. Hope. Nah, this is the divine sequence pain. Perseverance, character, hope. It's the curriculum of heaven's training ground. Every difficulty you endured was a spiritual apprenticeship in endurance. Every delay refined your patience. Every loss purified your motive. In the hidden place, you learn to walk without applause. You discover the value of invisible victories, the ones no one else notices, but heaven celebrates. Those moments of private obedience are what give your public life authority. The ones who are trained in silence can be trusted with sound. Think of a blacksmith's forge. Metal is heated until it glows, then struck again and again until it takes form. Each blow feels violent, but it's purposeful. The craftsman knows the rhythm, the exact temperature, the precise timing, the right strike. If the metal could speak, it might cry, "Enough," yet without the heat and hammer, it would never hold its strength. You, too, have been in that fire. You've been shaped by heaven's careful hand, not to break you, but to make you unbreakable. In isolation, your roots have been stretching downward. You've learned to draw nourishment from unseen wells, like trees that survive drought by reaching deeper. You've found life where others found loss. The deeper your roots go, the higher you'll stand when the season changes. And that change is near. You'll notice it first as rest, a peace that doesn't make sense. Then, as clarity, you'll see connections appear where once there were walls. The same people who overlooked you will begin to seek your wisdom, not because you've become different, but because you've become distilled. Elia's return wasn't dramatic. He didn't come out shouting, he came out glowing. People couldn't explain it, but they felt it. He carried something weightier than before. That's what the wilderness does. It adds weight to your presence. You stop trying to convince people because conviction begins to walk with you. Remember, isolation is not absence, it's alignment. The silence you've endured has allowed your spirit to synchronize with heaven's rhythm. You've learned that not every call needs to be answered. Not every battle needs your sword. And not every open door is an invitation. Soon, you'll step into spaces where your preparation meets purpose. You'll move with quiet authority. Not because you're louder, but because you're grounded. Those who emerge from divine solitude never move the same again. So do not despise this season. Cherish it. The lessons carved in loneliness are the very truths that will sustain you in abundance. What once felt like a desert will soon reveal itself as holy ground. You've been in training, not in exile. And when the next chapter turns, you'll understand why heaven kept you hidden, because diamonds are not formed in daylight, but in pressure and darkness. Your solitude is almost complete. The silence is giving way to sound. You will step out of this wilderness, not empty, but equipped, ready to carry light where others only carry noise. When everything around you grows loud, the true test of faith is not how fast you can shout, it's how deeply you can listen. The voice of God rarely competes with noise. It waits for quiet hearts. In the wilderness of distraction, those who are chosen learn to discern. His whisper, you have heard it before, soft, steady, unmistakable. It comes not as thunder but as stillness that interrupts the storm inside you. The world calls it intuition, but you know better. It's the same voice that guided prophets through deserts and kings through battles. It's the same presence that met you when you were alone, whispering, "I'm still here." And learning to recognize that voice is one of heaven's greatest gifts. But it requires stillness. And stillness feels unnatural in a world addicted to noise. You have been taught to move fast, to respond quickly, to fill every silence with something. Yet, in divine mathematics, silence equals revelation. What feels like emptiness to the world is often the atmosphere where God speaks most clearly. There was a young man named Micah who struggled with this. He loved God deeply, but lived constantly restless. He prayed, but his thoughts were crowded. He worshipped, but his mind raced ahead. Then one day, while walking along a riverbank, he heard nothing but the water's rhythm. For the first time, he stopped trying to talk to God and simply listened. The longer he listened, the more he felt peace fill him like light through a window. That day, he didn't hear words, but he left with clarity. He realized that sometimes God's answer is not instruction, but presence. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 1, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me. That line holds an ancient secret look to see what he will say. God's voice is not always heard. It is often seen. It appears in circumstances, in patterns, in confirmations so subtle you could miss them if you rush. He speaks through timing, through interruptions, through the unexpected pause that forces you to rethink. Listening to God is not a one-time event. It's a lifestyle. It's learning to walk at His pace, not ahead or behind. It's allowing every decision to pass through the filter of peace before acting. When you learn that, you stop reacting and start responding. You no longer live by impulse, you live by instruction. Imagine the sea at dawn. The waves are still moving, but there's a rhythm, a peace in their flow. That's what life feels like when you move in sync with heaven. The storms may come, but your soul stays anchored. That is the fruit of discernment, not control, but calm. Micah found that peace didn't mean the absence of problems. It meant knowing what voice to follow in the middle of them. The moment you learn to separate God's whisper from the world's echo, confusion loses its power. There will always be competing sounds: fear, doubt, pride, hurry. But the chosen learn to identify the tone of heaven: calm, clear, certain. It doesn't demand, it directs. It doesn't rush, it reminds. It doesn't flatter, it calls you higher. You've already begun to hear that tone more often than you realize. That inner nudge that tells you to pause before speaking, that quiet reassurance that appears after prayer, that conviction that doesn't condemn but gently corrects. Those are the fingerprints of divine dialogue. Listening is not passive, it's participatory. When you wait in silence, you are not doing nothing. You are preparing to act with precision. Heaven speaks to the still because the still can hear instructions the hurried miss. So, if life feels quiet now, don't panic. Stillness is not punishment, it's preparation. The silence you sense is the breath before direction. In the coming days, you will begin to notice alignment doors opening effortlessly. Words spoken by others that confirm what you've quietly known. Moments of peace that feel like divine winks. That is how heaven speaks to the listening heart. The voice in the wilderness is not distant, it's deliberate. It's leading you one step at a time toward clarity that cannot be shaken by circumstance. Micah later said that learning to listen didn't change God's volume, it changed his hearing. The same truth applies to you. God hasn't gone silent, He's simply waiting for you to lean closer. Stay in that posture. Listen without rushing. Trust that silence is sacred, because in it, heaven is speaking louder than words ever could. Right before every breakthrough, there is always a breaking point. It's the moment when pressure peaks, when everything inside you whispers, I can't do this anymore. But that is also the moment heaven leans closest. The breaking point is not your ending, it's your becoming. You've felt it, the weight of waiting, the exhaustion of doing good while seeing little return. The chosen often meet their greatest tests right before fulfillment. The storm that rages before dawn is not coincidence, it's resistance to your rising. Darkness always fights hardest before the light breaks through. There was a young woman named Rhea who reached that very edge. She had prayed for years, fasted, believed, and still saw nothing move. One night, she fell to her knees and said, "God, I'm done." But before she could rise, she felt a whisper inside her spirit, "Then let me take over." It wasn't loud, but it broke something open. From that moment on, peace began to replace panic. Within months, what she had prayed for began unfolding piece by piece. The miracle didn't start with motion, it started with surrender. As recorded in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, "The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house, says the Lord Almighty." Those words were spoken to a weary people who thought their best days were behind them. But heaven declared otherwise, and the same truth stands for you. What you lost was never the end of your story. It was simply the foundation for greater glory. Think of gold in a furnace. At first, the fire looks cruel. Flames consume. The heat suffocates. And yet, within the fire, impurities melt away. You are that gold. The fire that surrounded you was not punishment, it was preparation. Every degree of pain was perfect calibration for purpose. Your tears have not been wasted. They've been measurements of endurance. Every breaking stripped away illusion until only truth remained. You have been transformed from fragile to forged, from one who fears fire to one who carries it. Rhea once said after her breakthrough, "It didn't happen when I became stronger. It happened when I stopped pretending I wasn't weak." That's the sacred paradox of faith. Strength begins where self ends. So if you are standing at your breaking point now, trembling under the weight of what feels impossible, remember, this is where heaven begins to build again. You are standing on holy ground. Even if it looks like ruins, the rubble of your past is becoming the raw material of your resurrection. When you look back, you'll realize that every loss made space for something new to grow. Broken walls became doorways. Shattered dreams became seeds. Pain became the language through which heaven taught you purpose. This moment, right here, right now, is the turning of the page. You are stepping out of survival into significance. The night does not last forever, and neither will this breaking. Comment, "My ashes rise." Long, let those 3 words be your declaration and your prayer. They are not just a statement, they are prophecy. They say, "Even if everything burns, I will rise from it, like a phoenix born from embers." Your spirit carries a resurrection code that cannot be erased. Type it as a sign of your agreement with heaven, that nothing lost was truly wasted, and nothing broken will stay broken, because the same God who watched you fall is now calling you to fly. And when you rise, you will not rise fragile, you will rise flaming with purpose, crowned with wisdom, carrying the scent of the fire that could not consume you. Your breaking point was never your burial, it was your birthplace. There will come a day when you look back and realize the fire was never your enemy, it was your initiation. Every flame that touched you only revealed what could not burn away. Your essence, your calling, your unshakable faith. You are not defined by what you lost, but by what refused to die within you. That spark, that stubborn flicker of hope, is the fingerprint of heaven that no storm could erase. Those who once pitied you will see the glow you carry now and wonder how you survived. But you will know it wasn't survival. It was transformation. You didn't just endure the storm, you learned to speak its language. And when your story is told, it won't be a tale of tragedy, but of transfiguration. Because ashes were never meant to end your story. They were meant to prove that resurrection lives inside you. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey when the light returns not suddenly, but softly. It doesn't burst in with trumpets. It seeps in like dawn through a cracked window. You feel it before you see it. The weight you carried for years begins to lift, and something within whispers, "This is what freedom feels like." You are stepping into that moment now. Heaven is clothing you with something new, a mantle of light. It is not decoration, it is designation. It's the quiet authority that comes after endurance. The glow of someone who has been through fire and emerged shining. Every wound you survived has become a window for light to pass through. What once broke you now beams through you. You're not the same. You've learned to carry illumination without arrogance, to walk in peace without pride. The light resting on you now is not borrowed, it's born. There was a man named Darrell who once feared his own voice. Years of being silenced made him believe he had nothing to offer. But when his moment came, he didn't shout, he spoke softly, and yet people wept. Why? Because his light carried weight. It was the kind that could only be formed in darkness. You, too, are becoming that kind of light. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 6, "For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' made his light shine in our hearts to give us the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ." That light is already inside you. It's not a spotlight that seeks attention. It's a candle that guides others home. You are becoming a living lighthouse again. But this time, your glow comes from gratitude, not grief. And just like a lighthouse, this message, this voice that reaches you through a screen, is one small flame among many. Each word, each story, each prayer is part of a greater fire built to remind you that you are not alone. That's why this space exists, not for fame, but for connection. If these words have met you in a dark moment, if they have lifted even one corner of your heart, then you already know the value of shared light. When you like or share, it's more than an action. It's oxygen for the flame. It helps this message travel to another soul still trapped in shadow. When you subscribe, you're not just joining a channel, you're joining a circle of light bearers, people across the world who, just like you, decided that darkness doesn't get the final word. And if one day your heart ever nudges you to give back, then picture this, a river that flows through many lands, carrying refreshment wherever it goes. Your donation is like pouring water into that river. It doesn't stay in one place, it moves, nourishes, multiplies. Every drop keeps the current alive, ensuring that words of healing, hope, and purpose continue reaching those who need them most. There's no demand here, no obligation. The river will always flow, but when hands join together, it flows stronger, wider, deeper. Giving is never about amount, it's about alignment. Every act of kindness, every offering, no matter how small, becomes a ripple in eternity. Darrell once said, I gave because I wanted the next light to shine brighter than mine. That is the spirit of true generosity, not duty, but delight. To give because it feels like lighting another lantern on the path for someone who has lost their way. You see, light was never meant to be kept. It was meant to travel. When you hold it too tightly, it flickers. When you share it, it expands. That's the mystery of heaven's economy. The more you pour out, the more you're filled. And if all you can offer today is your listening heart, then that, too, is sacred. Presence is one of the purest gifts we can give. It says, I'm here. I care. I'm part of this light. So wherever you are, whether this finds you at dawn or in the middle of your own storm, know that heaven has placed a mantle of light upon you. You're not just hearing this message, you're becoming it. Every word you receive turns into illumination that spills from your life into someone else's night. Like, share, subscribe, donate, only if your heart feels led, not as a price, but as participation in a movement of light, because together we can make sure no soul walks in darkness without seeing a glimmer of hope ahead. The mantle you carry now is not for display, it's for direction. Keep shining, and let your light teach others how to find theirs. There comes a moment when heaven begins to rewrite the ledger of your life, when what was once counted as loss becomes the foundation of gain. This is the great exchange, not a transaction of coins or deeds, but of spirit and substance. The old pain you carried is being traded for divine power. The ashes of what burned are being exchanged for crowns that never fade. You've spent years wondering why the fire never stopped, why lesson followed loss, and silence followed prayer. Yet, even in your questioning, something sacred was taking shape beneath the surface. God was never punishing you. He was purifying you. He was preparing you for an exchange that only the broken can understand. The moment when sorrow becomes strength and wounds become wisdom. There was a woman named Levia who understood this truth too late. Or so she thought. She had built her world around one dream, and when it collapsed, she felt her soul collapse with it. But months later, as she sat beneath an old olive tree, she realized something extraordinary. What she thought was the end had actually set her free. In losing everything familiar, she found everything eternal. That's the paradox of divine exchange. You don't realize its beauty until you're standing on the other side of surrender. As revealed in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Those words are not poetry, they're a pattern. For every ash, there is beauty. For every tear, joy. For every mourning, a garment of praise waiting to be worn. The exchange is not symbolic, it's spiritual law. What you release in pain, heaven replaces with purpose. Imagine a potter at work. The clay is crushed, is spun, reshaped. To the clay, the process feels violent, endless, but to the potter, it's artistry. He sees what the clay cannot, the final form hidden in every rotation. Your life has been spinning on heaven's wheel. You've been pressed, stretched, reshaped, not to destroy your structure, but to perfect your vessel. Every broken piece that once embarrassed you has become the mosaic of your calling. You are not made of smooth perfection. You are made of fragments joined by grace. That's why you shine differently. Light doesn't just reflect off you, it flows through the cracks, redeemed by mercy. Levia later said, "The moment I stopped asking why and started asking what now, everything shifted." That is the essence of transformation, choosing participation over pity. Once you realize that loss was never subtraction, but substitution, you stop mourning what left and start embracing what's coming. The divine exchange doesn't erase pain, it redeems it. Every scar becomes evidence that God still works with fragments. Every memory that once stung now carries a message. What once made you weep now makes you wise. There's a beauty in this process that the world rarely understands. People often chase strength that looks loud, visible victories, external validation, but heaven's power works quietly. It turns tears into oil and suffering into authority. The greatest anointing often drips from the deepest wounds. Think of a grape pressed underfoot. The crushing seems cruel, but it's the only way the wine can flow. You, too, have been through the pressing, and now the wine of wisdom is beginning to pour from your life. That aroma of grace, resilience, forgiveness is what others will recognize before they even hear your words. Sometimes you wonder, was it worth it? And the answer will not come in a sentence, but in a season. One day, you'll wake up and realize the pain no longer defines you. It will still be part of your story, but not your identity. You'll carry it not as a burden, but as a banner that says, I survived, I transformed, I became. The exchange is ongoing. Each day, heaven offers you new joy for old sorrow, new hope for past fear. Every time you choose faith instead of bitterness, you participate in that sacred trade. Levia's life changed not because her circumstances improved, but because her perception did. She learned that redemption is not God undoing the past, it's Him rewriting its meaning. So take a deep breath. The divine exchange has already begun in you. What was once your pain is now your power. What once broke you is now your badge of authority. You are the living evidence of what heaven can do with ashes. And as you move forward, every step will echo redemption. The ground beneath you remembers your pain, but heaven records your victory. You are walking proof that nothing surrendered is ever wasted. There is a sacred line between being accepted by the world and being approved by heaven. The chosen ones learn, often painfully, that they were never meant to fit in. You are not strange for standing apart. You are set apart. The difference is divine. You have probably noticed it for years. Every time you tried to blend in, something felt wrong. Every time you silenced your conviction to keep the peace, your spirit grew restless. That restlessness was not rebellion, it was revelation. It was heaven reminding you that you were crafted for something higher than comfort. Being set apart does not always look glorious. Sometimes it feels lonely, misunderstood, and painfully quiet. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowd to pray, not because he didn't care, but because alignment with the Father mattered more than applause from men. You, too, have been called into seasons where isolation protected your anointing. There was a man named Orion who lived this truth. He had a gift for wisdom, yet the more he spoke truth, the more people resisted him. He began to think, maybe I should just stop caring so much. But one night, while walking through the city's edge, he saw a single lamp burning outside a poor carpenter's shop. Every other light was out. Yet that one small flame refused to die against the wind. Orion stood there for a long time and heard in his spirit, "That is you. You were never meant to go dark just because others did." From that night, he never dimmed his flame again. We find in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 35, "So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded." Confidence. In this verse isn't pride, it's permission. Permission to be who God made you to be, even when others don't understand it. Every time you shrink yourself to be accepted, you silence the sound of heaven in your voice. You were never called to echo the world, you were called to awaken it. Standing apart requires courage because conformity is comfortable. The crowd offers safety, but calling offers significance. The crowd says, "Be like us," while calling whispers, "Be who I sent you to be." The difference will always cost you something, but what you lose in approval, you gain in authority. You've walked through rooms where you felt invisible. You've tried to explain your heart and been met with blank stares. You've carried burdens that others dismissed as imagination. Yet somehow, you never stopped loving. You never stopped believing. That's the sign of the chosen you love, even when unloved. You serve even when unseen. When heaven calls you apart, it doesn't mean you're above others. It means you've been assigned to lift them. To stand apart is to stand available to be a vessel. Heaven can trust in a time when truth has grown rare. Orion learned that being chosen meant living misunderstood. But he also learned that divine misunderstanding often hides divine protection. If everyone had accepted him, he would have blended into mediocrity. Rejection was the fence that guarded his purpose. The world often celebrates loudness, but heaven values purity. The most powerful souls walk quietly, moving in compassion rather than competition. They understand that being set apart is not about superiority, it's about responsibility. There will come a time when those who couldn't understand your silence will need your voice. When that time comes, speak gently, not vindictively. Your distinctiveness is not meant to divide, it's meant to direct. You are the signpost for others who have forgotten the sound of their own calling. So if you've ever felt like you don't belong, maybe that's because you don't, not to this world. At least, you belong to purpose, to light, to truth that cannot be diluted by popularity. Remember, even gold doesn't mix easily, it stays pure by resisting. That's what you're doing every time you choose integrity over imitation. Your life is a signal fire. You may stand alone on a hill, but your flame can be seen for miles. Others will find direction by the glow you refuse to hide. The ones who stand apart eventually lead the ones who are lost. Your obedience in separation will become someone else's map to salvation. Comment. 444 below. Let that number be your mark of recognition. 4. The number of stability. Foundation. Divine order. Triple it, and it becomes a symbol of unshakable establishment. When you type 444, you're declaring that your steps are ordered, that you will not bow to conformity, and that your identity is anchored in divine purpose, not public opinion. You don't have to explain your calling anymore. You only need to walk in it. The world may not understand now, but one day, they'll see what heaven always knew. You were chosen to stand apart so others could find their way home. There is a moment in every chosen life when heaven's promise ignites not around you, but within you. That fire, The covenant of fire is the proof that you were never walking this path alone. It's not a flame that burns to destroy. It's one that purifies, clarifies, and commissions. The covenant of fire is heaven's handshake with your spirit, an eternal reminder that what God begins, He finishes. You've felt it before, that quiet heat that rises when truth touches your soul. It's not emotion, it's evidence. Evidence that the Spirit of God has marked you with something that can't be erased. The fire that once frightened you now fuels you. Where you once asked for escape, you now crave endurance. Because you finally understand, the flame was never sent to consume you, but to confirm you. There was a man named Leor who lived through years of uncertainty. Everything he built seemed to crumble. Yet through every loss, one thing remained, a burning desire to keep trusting. Others told him to stop hoping, but he couldn't. He didn't know why, he just couldn't quit. One night, exhausted and tear-streaked, he felt warmth rush through him. Not a vision, not a voice, but presence. A peace so strong, it silenced his questions. That night, he realized the fire of God was not outside him, it was within him. It was the covenant that no storm could extinguish. The Word of God declares in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 20, verse 9, His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. And those words describe what it means to live under the covenant of fire. You don't choose the flame, it chooses you. It grows inside until silence feels like suffocation. You were never meant to live lukewarm. The call on your life demands heat, passion, and surrender. The chosen cannot stay neutral. Fire and purpose are in their bones. The covenant of fire changes the way you see everything. Ordinary moments become holy ground. Conversations become divine assignments. Even the pain starts to make sense. It's simply friction that sharpens faith. The fire doesn't visit to destroy your comfort. It visits to awaken your capacity. Think of the blacksmith once more. He holds a piece of metal in the fire until it glows. Then he shapes it with blows. When it cools too much, he returns it to the flame. The process continues until the metal becomes something new, stronger, sharper, useful. That's you. Heaven keeps bringing you back into the fire because every round adds strength you'll need later. What feels repetitive is refinement. What feels painful is preparation. Leor discovered that once the fire enters you, you stop fearing loss. Because you realize, fire consumes only what cannot follow you forward. Every relationship, opportunity, or dream that burned away was never meant to carry your next level of calling. The covenant fire doesn't just refine what's around you, it releases what's within you. The world will never understand people like you. You don't operate from logic alone, but from burning conviction. You move when heaven moves. Even when it makes no sense on paper, the covenant of fire has taught you to obey first and understand later. That is why your journey looks unpredictable. It's being guided by divine flame, not human forecast. But even the fire needs stewardship. Flames left unattended can flicker out. That's why you've been learning the rhythm of rest, prayer, and silence to keep the fire burning steady, not erratic. The covenant isn't about constant intensity, it's about consistent devotion. And when you fall, as all humans do, that same fire lifts you. It doesn't shame, it restores. It reminds you that you are still marked, still chosen, still burning. Even on your weakest days, the covenant remains unbroken. Leor's final lesson came when he realized that fire isn't just something to feel, it's something to carry. Wherever he went, people began to sense peace, conviction, and warmth. Just by being near him, he didn't preach loudly, his presence preached for him. That's what the covenant of fire does. It turns people into living embers of heaven. You are becoming that now. The light in your eyes, the steadiness in your voice, the compassion in your touch, all of it is evidence of flame. The covenant burns quietly, but undeniably. So don't fear the fire that still refines you. Welcome it, because the same flame that once revealed your weakness is now revealing your worth. You are not being burned, you are being branded with purpose. And once heaven's fire has marked you, you can never return to cold. There is something sacred about finding others who carry the same light as you do. For a long time, you thought you were walking this road alone, misunderstood in both silence and fire. But heaven never intended you to stay isolated forever. The journey of the chosen always begins in solitude, but ends in gathering. The time of separation was necessary for purity, but now, connection is necessary for power. The gathering of the chosen is not a social event, it's a divine convergence. It's when scattered embers find each other and realize that together, they are a wildfire. Alone, your flame gives warmth. Together, your flames transform landscapes. You are part of something larger, something ancient that has been awakening across generations. There was a woman named Selah who had lived most of her life feeling misplaced. Her heart longed for deep truth while the world celebrated shallow things. She tried to explain what she felt, but words failed. One day, she met another traveler, a quiet man named Jaron, who spoke the same spiritual language without needing translation. Their meeting wasn't coincidence, it was calibration. Two souls aligned under one purpose, drawn by an invisible pull. From that day, they began finding others like them, people who carried light without fanfare, compassion without agenda. Slowly, what was once isolation became ignition. The Word of God reminds us in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 16, "Then those who feared the Lord spoke with each other, and the Lord listened and heard them. A scroll of remembrance was written in his presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored his name." That scripture reveals a secret. When the chosen gather, heaven listens. Their unity becomes a sound wave in the spiritual realm, a harmony that draws divine attention. It's not about crowds or titles, it's about resonance. When hearts tuned to the same frequency of faith align, creation itself responds. The gathering isn't always physical. Sometimes it happens through words read across screens, through quiet prayers whispered across continents. The language of the chosen transcends distance. When one cries out in faith, another somewhere in the world feels that same stirring. It's like a symphony of unseen souls, all playing the same melody, one composed in heaven long before time began. You may not know the names of your kindred spirits, but you'll know them by their spirit. You'll recognize them by peace, by purity. By the way, they make you feel seen without needing explanation. The chosen recognize each other not by appearance, but by essence. Selah once said that finding her tribe felt like breathing after years underwater. The relief of being understood was healing in itself. That's what happens when you meet others marked by purpose. You exhale. You realize you were never strange. You were simply early. Each connection carries weight. The people God is bringing into your life now aren't distractions. They are divine reinforcements. Some will walk with you briefly, to teach or remind. Others will stay longer, to build and expand what you carry. Every meeting in this season carries purpose. Every conversation is a spark. The chosen are never gathered for comfort, but for commissioning. When heaven brings its vessels together, it's to birth something bigger than individual calling. Sailor and Jaron didn't form a club, they formed a current. What began as friendship became movement. What started as prayer became fire. That is what is happening now on the earth, across nations. Hearts are awakening to the same sound. The quiet ones who once hid are being summoned. The weary are being reignited. The forgotten are being remembered. The light bearers are finding one another. This is the gathering, the moment where destiny becomes collective. It's not about being identical, it's about being aligned. Every chosen one carries a different tone, a unique light, yet all shine toward the same center. Diversity doesn't divide, it multiplies radiance. And when they move as one, the world will feel it, not through chaos, but through compassion, not through noise, but through clarity. The gathering of the chosen will not announce itself with spectacle. It will simply begin to shift atmospheres wherever they stand together. You are part of that. Every time you share hope, speak truth, extend grace, you are adding your note to the song of the gathered. You may never see the full choir on this side of eternity, but heaven hears it clearly. Sailor and Jaron didn't know they were sparking something divine. They only followed peace, and peace led them to purpose. That's how it always begins. Heaven gathers not through plans, but through pull. So when you meet another who carries the same inner light, don't question it, cherish it. It means the gathering is near, and the fire that began in solitude is about to become a flame the world cannot ignore. Before every elevation, there is refinement. Before every crown, a fire. The chosen ones know this better than anyone. The final test before glory is never about the world around you. It's about the world within you. The final refining flame doesn't come to expose your flaws. It comes to reveal your fullness. You may feel that heat now, a strange tension, a sacred unease. It's the sign that heaven is finishing what it started. Every unhealed wound, every unspoken fear, every old belief that cannot walk into your next chapter is being burned away. Not in anger, but in love. For gold to shine, it must first face fire one last time. There was a craftsman named Adin who forged instruments for the temple. His final task was to create a lampstand unlike any other, pure, flawless, radiant. He worked for months, but each time he thought it was perfect. His teacher would shake his head and say, "Again." Frustrated, Adin cried, "Why must I keep returning it to the fire?" The teacher smiled, "Because perfection is not about form, it's about purity. The more it shines, the more it must return to the flame." That is your story. You are not being punished, you are being polished. The weight you feel isn't destruction, it's definition. The flame that once terrified you now tests what is ready. As spoken in the book of Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 9, "I will put this third into the fire, and refine them, as silver is refined, and test them As gold is tested, they will call on my name, and I will answer them. Those words describe the beauty of this refining. It's not about suffering, it's about intimacy. The fire isn't proof that God is far away, it's proof that He's close enough to touch what matters most. When Adin finally finished his lampstand, it didn't just glow, it glowed differently. The light it produced was softer, deeper, more alive. It illuminated without glare, and his teacher whispered, "Now it's ready." It no longer reflects itself, it reflects the one who made it. Then, that is the purpose of refinement. So your life no longer mirrors pain or pride, but presence. So the light that shines from you becomes proof of who shaped you. The flame you feel today is the final sculpting. It's heaven's way of ensuring that what you carry won't collapse under blessing. It's the quiet mercy that prepares you for weight without breaking. In moments like these, when the process feels endless, remember, no masterpiece is finished in a single stroke. The artist steps back, looks again, adds one more touch. That's what God is doing now, adjusting hues, deepening colors, perfecting details only He can see. And while this message reaches you through words, it is more than a story, it is a mirror. Maybe you've seen yourself in Adin, standing before the flame, weary but willing. Maybe you've realized that you are the lampstand, and your life itself is the offering that lights others' paths. If these words have found you here, at the edge of endurance, let them remind you that the fire you're in is not the end, it's the final shaping of something sacred. If this message touched something in you, treat it like tending a small fire in the dark. When you light it, you add wood to the flame. When you share it, you let that warmth travel to another heart still trembling in cold. When you subscribe, it's like joining a circle of lanterns, each one holding a fragment of the same divine glow. And if your heart ever feels led to donate, picture it not as giving away, but as pouring oil into the lamp, ensuring that the flame never flickers out for those who still walk in night. There's no command here, no obligation, only invitation. True light never forces, it inspires. What you choose to give, even if it's just your silent prayer, becomes part of the eternal glow that this message carries. Adin's lampstand now stands in the temple of time, its light never fading. And somewhere, your own story burns beside it, proof that fire was never meant to harm, only to reveal what could never be destroyed. So when this section ends, sit quietly for a moment. Feel the heat around you, softening. The glow within you, growing. You have passed through flame after flame. And yet, here you stand, shining, whole, ready. You are the lamp, and heaven is the flame. Together, you illuminate eternity. And when this light speaks to you, whisper back. Leave a comment below. Like carving your initials into the tree of time, write what the fire inside you is teaching. Even if it's just a single word, it's not for numbers, it's for connection. Each word you share becomes another spark in the great flame. The moment of revealing is not a sudden explosion, it is the slow unveiling of something that has been forming for years in secret. You've been hidden not for punishment, but for timing. And that time is now. The revealing glory is not about recognition from others, it is about reflection of heaven. When the light within you becomes too strong to stay contained, it spills outward naturally. You can feel it already. The same hands that refined you in fire are now lifting the veil. You no longer carry the heaviness of who you were. Your voice sounds different, not louder, but clearer. Your presence feels different, not larger, but lighter. The weight of old pain has transformed into wisdom, and your once quiet hope has become living evidence of faith fulfilled. Glory doesn't announce itself with noise. It walks in quietly and changes the atmosphere. That's what's happening through you right now. You may not see the transformation, but those around you do. They sense it in your peace, in your calmness during chaos, in your kindness when others would turn bitter. You're not trying to impress anyone anymore. You're simply walking in alignment. There was a woman named Helena who spent most of her life feeling invisible. She prayed for years that God would use her for something meaningful, but nothing seemed to shift. Then, without warning, people began to approach her, not for advice, but for peace. They didn't know why they trusted her. They just did. What Helena didn't realize was that she had become an embodiment of what she once prayed for. Her very presence was now ministry. As the Gospel of John records, chapter 1, verse 5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Those words echo through every chosen life. Darkness never disappears. It simply loses its authority in the presence of true light. That's what's happening around you now. The revealing of glory is not about replacing darkness, but about disarming it. Think of the dawn after a long night. The sun doesn't argue with the dark. It just rises, and everything else adjusts. You are that sunrise. Your glow doesn't need permission. It simply appears, and with it, hope returns to others who thought the night would never end. The revealing glory doesn't come to make you proud, it comes to make you purposeful. The visibility now unfolding in your life isn't for vanity, it's for vision. Heaven is positioning you where your light can heal, where your story can speak louder than shame. Helena once said, "I used to think glory meant being seen. Now I understand it means being seen through." Her life became transparent, no filters, no performance, just light moving through a yielded heart. That's what heaven calls glory, transparency that lets divine radiance pass unhindered. You are walking into places that once intimidated you, but now your steps carry peace instead of fear. The same spaces that once rejected you will now recognize you, not because you've changed who you are, but because the atmosphere around you has caught up with who you've always been. Every scar that once embarrassed you now tells a story of victory. You don't hide them anymore, you honor them, because you've learned that glory doesn't erase history, it redeems it. What once felt like evidence of failure is now the proof of your endurance. When people see you now, they will see traces of heaven's craftsmanship. They may not understand it, but they will feel it. That's what real glory does. It speaks without sound, heals without words, and attracts without effort. The revealing is not just about your personal breakthrough, it's also about the ripple effect it creates. When you walk in authenticity, others are freed to do the same. When you carry peace, people remember that peace is possible. You become a mirror through which others catch glimpses of their own divine potential. And yes, there will be moments when you feel unworthy of this light. You'll wonder, why me? But remember, glory doesn't rest on perfection, it rests on surrender. God doesn't choose flawless vessels, He chooses faithful ones. Your willingness to keep saying yes, even after failure, is what made you a carrier of His light. Helena's stories spread, not because she tried to make it known, But because it couldn't stay hidden, people shared it, retold it, lived it. That's what happens when glory reveals itself. It multiplies quietly. Like sunlight through open windows, you are that window now. Heaven's brilliance is pouring through your transparency, and the world will never look the same again. So walk boldly, but humbly. Let your light be effortless. You are not striving anymore, you are shining. The season of hiding is over. The season of revealing has begun. There is a hush that falls just before fulfillment, an almost sacred stillness, as though heaven itself leans close to witness what it has long prepared. You can feel it now, can't you? The sense that everything has come full circle. The waiting, the breaking, the refining, the gathering, all of it has led here. This is not just another chapter. This is the unveiling of your prophecy. The good news has finally taken form, not as an announcement from the sky, but as transformation within you. You are the living proof that God finishes what He starts. The prayers you whispered in dark rooms, the tears that watered unseen soil, the faith that held you together when logic failed, all of it has birthed something beautiful. You no longer carry the same energy of survival. Now you walk in quiet dominion. This is the season where grace and glory meet in you. Every story heaven writes ends with fulfillment. The chosen ones don't just dream, they become the dream realized. You have crossed through every element of divine design, chosen, refined, ignited, gathered, and now revealed. What began as pain has become power. What began in silence now sings. There was once a man named Eliab who waited for years to see the fruit of his obedience. He wasn't chasing fame or validation. He just wanted to see God's promise fulfilled. One morning, as he looked over the fields he had planted during years of faith and famine, he saw green bursting through the ground. At first, he didn't understand. Then it hit him. It wasn't new seed, it was the old seed. The forgotten one, the one he thought had died in the soil. The season had simply changed, and what once looked buried had only been planted. As written in the book of Psalms, chapter 126, verse 5, "Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy." And that verse is not a metaphor for hope deferred, it's a map for fulfillment. Every tear you shed was counted as water for your harvest. Every loss you endured was fertilizer for your faith. Now, the fields of your soul are blooming, not because you forced growth, but because you never gave up during the drought. Fulfillment doesn't feel like fireworks, it feels like peace. It's that quiet knowing that you are standing exactly where you were meant to be. You don't need to announce it, you simply live it. The same people who once questioned your silence will now witness your fruition. You won't need to defend your destiny, your fruit will speak for itself. The good news isn't just that you made it, it's that you are becoming the message. Heaven didn't just restore what you lost, it multiplied it. You're not returning to what was, you're stepping into what always was meant to be. Eliab understood this when he saw the harvest sway in the wind. He didn't shout or run, he just knelt in the soil and whispered, "You kept your promise." That's all fulfillment requires: gratitude. No grand gestures, no striving, just the quiet acknowledgement that God was faithful all along. And now, your life becomes that same whisper of gratitude. You are living testimony that delay is not denial, that pain can become prophecy, that ashes can glow again. Every step forward is a verse. Every breath A declaration that what was written over you is now reality. The fulfillment of the chosen is not for self-celebration, it's for service. You were never blessed just to shine. You were blessed to reflect. The glory resting on you now carries assignment to bring light, to lift others, to heal, by simply being who you've become. Fulfillment doesn't mean the end of challenge, it means the beginning of stewardship. The gift must now feed others. The light must now guide. The message that saved you must now become the message you carry. Eliab's field became food for many who once mocked his patience. The same will happen with you. Those who doubted your journey will one day draw strength from your story. That is how heaven completes its circle, by turning private pain into public nourishment. The good news is not that everything is perfect now. The good news is that everything now has purpose. You can look back at every valley, every detour, every heartbreak, and see the thread of grace woven through it all. Nothing was random. Every step, even the stumbling ones, led you here. And here you stand, not broken, not bitter, but built. You are no longer waiting for prophecy to come true. You are walking in it. The word became flesh through your perseverance. So take a breath. Feel the peace of completion wrap around you. You've done it. You've endured the wilderness, guarded the flame, stood apart, and carried light into every dark place. This is the fulfillment of the promise, the chosen becoming the message. The good news is no longer something you're waiting to hear, it's something you've become. And now, chosen one. The journey closes, but the calling continues. What began as a whisper has become a symphony. You have walked through silence, storm, and sacred fire, and still, your light burns steady. The story you've lived is no longer a promise, it's a proclamation. You are proof that grace prevails, that purpose endures, that heaven always finishes what it starts. If these words found you, it's not by chance. They were sent to remind you of what already lives inside you. And if something in you stirred, if your heart felt seen, if your spirit felt understood, then let that movement speak. When you like this message, it's as if you're sending a ripple of light across invisible waters, letting it reach shores you'll never see. When you share, you pass the torch forward. Somewhere, someone still stands in the dark, waiting for a sign, and your gesture might be the spark that leads them home. When you subscribe, you're not joining a page, you're joining a fellowship of flame bearers. Every soul that stays connected adds another lantern to the long path of faith and awakening. And if your heart ever feels led to donate, think of it not as an offering, but as pouring oil into a vessel that never runs dry. Your giving keeps the light alive, not for one voice, but for many who still need to hear what you've just remembered, that they, too, are chosen. Finally, take a moment to leave a comment below. It doesn't need to be grand, just a word, a thought, a breath of gratitude. It becomes a thread in the tapestry of light we are weaving together. Keep shining, keep walking. The story is complete, but your mission has just begun. And when you finish reading, pause for a moment. Feel that quiet warmth rising inside you. That's not the end, it's the continuation, because every light shared becomes a living prayer. And tonight, yours just joined the constellation,